All right, team, we are back with After Hours on this fine Monday. And look, Maddie, I finally got a different setup here. It does have to be
Oh, thank God.
built a little bit out, but I think it's going to look very good. It's going to look very nice for you guys. So leave it in the comment section down below what you think of my new setup. But today, Maddie, we are getting into some great topics today. I'm very excited for today's show. We're going to be talking about the top Bitcoin indicator. We're also going to be discussing John Deaton saying he's not a technical analyst, but the XRP chart is looking pretty bullish. We're going to discuss that. And finally, we're going to wrap up with what Anthony Pompliano says is the single most important thing for Bitcoin right now. We're going to review that and give some thoughts here. This is After Hours. Maddie, we're exactly a week away from no more Gary Gensler and a new U.S. president. How are you feeling going into this next week?
Oh, great. I'll take the Gensler cleanse as, just a huge W for the entire community. And, again, I just hope he doesn't drop some nasty crumbs on his way out like, we've seen with previous SEC head chairs on the way out. But I think that whoever we get in here next, is going to really just bring a lot of optimism back into the space. So I'm very excited about it. I know there's a lot of rumors of Trump doing some day one executive order related stuff, and that's related to crypto. That could be positive for the industry. Now, again, that's just 100% speculation. If it happens, great. I'm all for it. Whatever catalyst they want to provide to send it higher, my lord. I'm all for it. But yeah, I'm overall optimistic and excited. I don't know if the markets turn over exactly January 20 on the dot, but hey, if he comes out there and does even issue one executive order that's maybe defining how the SEC or CFTC gets to interact with crypto, or custodians, or even just instructing Congress to get to work, those will all be positive things. So I'm rooting for all of those positive catalysts. Because I'm ready to see these markets get back to it.
Mm-hmm. Looking at the markets right now, the Dow slightly up on the day, and we're seeing other stocks showing some corrective behavior over the weekend, and even Bitcoin showed a lot of corrective behavior. But since on the day earlier this morning, took a deep fall to, what was it, 89,164. So a deep pullback there, not as deep as some of the other big red pepperoni candles we've seen in the past, Maddie, but still tremendous. But we're seeing some recovery in Bitcoin. Where I was just telling you before the show, look at gold, look at silver right now. Like, look how corrective they are showing right now. And so I don't know, is it a great time to buy some silver, Matt?
It's not deep enough discount. I was definitely picking up, and we talked about it on the show too. I was definitely picking up, pieces of generic silver and whatnot. As we were kind of in that $18 and $22 region. It's just a really good deal, and premiums weren't too bad. And then we got this nice pop into the high 20s, low 30s. When I go dump that over at the local coin shop here, but it's not a good enough discount for me right now. If maybe we were to see sub 25 again, I might be interested in picking up a little bit more physical just to kind of have a hedge. But in the short term, just not interesting or lucrative enough of a price for me.
Maddie, on almost every single After Hours show of the past couple months now, we've discussed, or maybe just, it was the last couple months, we have talked about seeing lower prices in Bitcoin here. All right. We have expected lower prices in Bitcoin, and now we are seeing that. My question for you is, because I was telling you this morning about some people I was hearing, some people said, oh, we broke this zone, we broke this range. And, someone was saying, it's kind of here or there. I wanted to ask you, have we broken this key range we have been developing for a while now? And if so, does that mean lower prices, or have we cleared out enough of this zone to now move up in price? Talking about Bitcoin here.
Sure. So I'll go ahead and kind of tend to your guys' comments. I know you guys like when we're talking about price action to have the chart up. So let's make sure that we're taking a look at the chart here as a team, because I know a lot of you guys are like visual learners, and although like a lot of this stuff can be digestible if you do enough TA, it might be a little bit difficult to follow along. Let's talk about first of all, the break-in structure here, where we possibly would need to be for Bitcoin to be like what I would consider a rebalanced chart, or where market makers would feel comfortable, essentially moving their bids back up into higher prices. So, when we look at the short-term range here, first of all, it really hasn't been a very long time that we've been in this range. So let's say when we really started kind of like creating a lot of like price action where we were spending more time sideways, I'd say kind of right around here, even though we poked a new high. So let's just say it's really been kind of maybe like 50-ish days in this range, right? So like just a little under 2 months, we've been building this structure in here. Now, if we're being completely objective about this, right? Like let's forget about what we think about sentiment. Let's forget about Donald Trump for a minute. Let's forget about everything else that has to do from a, speculative narrative or anything else, right? If I were to look at this chart and I see these candles in here, these are candles that created imbalance in the chart. So when you have these big tops and you have us banging our heads against ceilings of resistance for extended periods of time. So we can see that example over and over again here. All these tops, again, resistance here, resistance over here. Even here, we get a nice little push, a knockback, and then we get the breakout. And when you get candles like this that just kick off massive impulses and they do not offer a selling opportunity back into that zone to confirm that previous ceiling of resistance as a new floor of support, I'm actually going to pull you guys out to the weekly chart here just so you guys can see if I were to rip this over even a little bit further, we can say like even this whole zone in here, right, would qualify as an imbalance that got left behind. So the top of that imbalance is right around $72,000. Bottom of that balance, right around $67,000. Now, everyone relax. I'm not telling you guys that Bitcoin has to come down today or, before we kick off another impulsive leg to fill this imbalance. But when you see these imbalances, they are areas of interest that leave a little bit of concern for me, right? So I think that's where everyone's at right now when they see this distributive structure, because that's technically what's happening here is when you had accumulation, markup, you get distribution, and then you get a markdown phase before you get more reaccumulation. If we were to be looking at this chart upside down, we'd be like, this actually looks kind of bullish, right? We'd be looking at this previous support level that was lost in here, and you're like, you know what? At the minimum, I think that we could see a retracement higher and then maybe see a little bit more lower prices, right? But that's not what we're looking at chart-wise here. That would actually be looking at something more of this nature, right? So does it have to come down to $72,000 for us to see $150,000, $200,000? No. Sometimes market makers will manipulate price higher first, but this is going to be an area of interest that you need to keep in the back of your mind as a very lucrative pocket for reaccumulation if you're interested in picking up more Bitcoin, right? So this is what I think that a lot of people are looking at. They're looking at this little level in here. They're looking at all the levels of support that, showed a lot of bounces before. You guys can see bounce, 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 right? All the wicks in there. What they're looking at is this deviation that happened here. I think that for the most part, just based on what we're seeing from the behavior today, is this is a market maker candle, meaning there's a lot of leverage in the system. And that's really why we see a lot of the volatility with cryptocurrency, aside from it just being like a very volatile risk on asset. When you have support levels in here and people think they're going to catch the next leg up to 125, 150, and they're going 20x, 50x, 100x leverage, right? They're going to place their stop loss as tight as they possibly can so they can open up as large of a position as possible. Market makers know that. They know where all your orders are because they control the order books. If they can drop a wick that liquidates where most people's stop losses are, which is just below the support level, that's a very good amount of money they're able to recover, flush the leverage out of the system, and then let VCs and everyone else who's in control of the market push the markets higher. So really, if we're looking at kind of like where the area of interest is, it could actually be as deep as maybe where this wick came down towards like 85K. I would say that if we deviated below that, we're very much likely to test 72. So that's kind of my line in the sand is 85. So short term, I still don't feel 100% great about Bitcoin. That's very distributive. There's a rounded top. Like we just talked about, if we were being objective, we saw this in an inverse capacity. We say, okay, there's support being built here. There's imbalance. We should probably go test that, even if we're going to move lower. I feel a little bit bearish on Bitcoin right now. Now, if we close today's candle above, let's say 91.5, I would say that looks short-term bullish, like it looks decent. But I'm not completely confident that we're done with the corrective behavior for Bitcoin yet.
I love that, Maddie. You painted a really good picture there. I really like how in-depth you went into there. And team, you can get a lot of in-depth data analysis at CryptoCharge. We cover CryptoCharge. Remember, click the pin link down below. It will take you over to our website, and you can use code YouTube to sign up. And that is our education platform, specifically for crypto. But you do get other things. I know Dan does a show once a week, and he's talking about the macro. He's talking about the jobs data. He's talking about inflation. He's talking about Fed. He's talking literally about everything over there. And then Maddie covers the TA, covers crypto news. And I think it's a pretty good package over there. So team, use code YouTube to sign up. You have the tools, you have the Discord, you have the daily shows, you have everything over there. At least go check us out there. I'm ready to get into the show officially here. I know we always do our little talking about the markets at the top of the show, but I'm interested to get into the show for today because I was listening to someone this morning and he was just talking, and on a whim, he was like, oh, it's kind of funny. Jamie Dimon always critiques Bitcoin or crypto or has something to say in kind of odd moments. And he didn't display a chart or anything. So I pulled up my own Bitcoin chart and I went to Bloomberg and some other news outlets and marked down all the times Jamie Dimon had something to say about Bitcoin. And so here you go. There are some blue marks with some description right here, and there's some without them because I just could not fit them properly on the screen, but I'll break it all down for you. September 12, 2017, Jamie Dimon referred to Bitcoin as a fraud and stated he would fire any employee trading it. October 13th, 2017, warned that stupid Bitcoin investors would pay the price for their investments. October 12th, 2021, stated, I personally think that Bitcoin is worthless. I love the personally one. That was funny then, it's still funny now. September 22nd, 2022, called cryptocurrencies decentralized Ponzi schemes during a congressional hearing. December 6, 2023, asserted that the government should close down crypto, expressing deep opposition. January 17th, 2024, labeled Bitcoin as a pet rock that facilitates fraud and money laundering. And today, January 13th, 2025, described Bitcoin as having no intrinsic value and associated it with illicit activities like sex trafficking and money laundering. So I think what I'm displaying here is typically a Bitcoin maxi argument, but I think you can clearly see how silly Jamie Dimon is by these comments. While we'll not say, looking at this chart, Maddie, like, he called Bitcoin worthless like a Pico top in 2021, right?
Right.
I want people to first take this and be like, okay, Bitcoin is here for the long run, right? Now, would buying Bitcoin in October of 2021 make a whole lot of sense? Personally, not a whole lot to me because it's overextended, but to some that can put their, emotions away and have a high time preference, or a low time preference, and can push that out into the future for their investments, I have no problem with that, right? Now, I do have a problem if you buy the top and you listen to some of these people like we talked about on last show and are waiting for a haircut, right, Matt? And so I was just looking at it right now. So let's just say, for example, you bought Bitcoin at $92,000 today, right? We expect a 2x on Bitcoin, max maybe 180K Bitcoin, all right? Now, let's just say Bitcoin does a 85% down move. That's typically how we get the bear market going with, 70, 80% downwards action.
Right.
That would be a 35K Bitcoin, all right? Which is seriously less than the price we're seeing today, which is 92,000, right? So just think about that for a second, and that's why we employ strategic buying. Matt, do you see any correlation on this chart? I think I'm missing one back here. Nope. Here in 2017 was the beginning stage of the Jamie Dimon indicator. Does the Jamie Dimon indicator actually work and show you a great time to buy Bitcoin?
I mean, not entirely, right? Like we can see that, there's at least two good examples in here where like, it wouldn't be so, advantageous to buy as there's not, maybe not as much, juice left. And there's obviously a couple other examples here where you're catching basically the second leg off of Jamie's comments in there, but it's not binary, right? And I think that's one of the things I always want us to look at is that these are probabilities, not absolutes. So you can look at this data, you can say over time, this is what Jamie Dimon says. There's probably other catalysts that he's pairing up these specific statements with. And, let's not pretend like, that they're catching Jamie Dimon out in the wild. And they're like, Jamie Dimon, what do you think about Bitcoin, right? Like, it's just like you see these celebrities, they get caught out by the paparazzi. Like, they call the paparazzi. It's intentional, right? Like,
yeah.
So I think that it's the same thing with Jamie Dimon here. Like, he doesn't, nobody's seeking him out to get his opinion on Bitcoin. He's calling up his buddies over at the media outlets and he's, saying, hey, this is what I want to talk about. Go ahead and call me up about this and we'll do it that way. But, first of all, like, I really don't care what most of these guys say. They're not doing what they actually say they're doing. There's no way that Jamie Dimon doesn't have digital assets in his portfolio, whether he wants to reveal it or not. There's no way he doesn't work with other VC firms or fund other VC firms that also work with this. So whether he wants to say he's directly involved or not, I think he's been involved this entire time. It's just such a lucrative asset class, and there's just no reason to not have exposure to it. Now, does it take away from maybe some of the traditional investments that we see some of the banks pushing right now? They don't have the products to be able to offer them at wide scale to their customers. Yeah, I'm sure that there's a factor with that as well, right? Same reason that Charlie Munger, taking his dying breath, and then we saw Bitcoin, rage after that, after he, talked so badly about it. So it's not that I think that these guys are complete idiots. I think that they just are, doing differently than what they're actually telling us that they're doing here.
Yeah, so looking at this chart, it does make Jamie Dimon's comments at least look silly. Something that is kind of like, is that JP Morgan does have indirect exposure to Bitcoin via spot Bitcoin ETFs through iShares and Bitwise spot Bitcoin ETF. So, it kind of calls into question, like, does he really feel this way? Or is there an unclear reason, Maddie, you think that Jamie Dimon speaks this way about Bitcoin and other digital assets?
Like I said, I think it comes down to a little bit of the inability to like market their exposure, because there just isn't this huge advantage to the exposure through an ETF versus just being able to go on Coinbase and buy directly. I'm sure that the fees are probably actually a little bit more for the ETFs, and again, that's just speculation. But I think more than anything, they probably want to see price a lot higher, and before they tell everyone, hey, now's a good time. Now Bitcoin's very, very much worth your investment at $300,000, at $400,000, at $500,000. So I think there's definitely an intentional, distortion of what they think the actual value of these assets are, because they want to make sure that they're able to scoop up enough of it themselves. And then once we're at those higher prices, they'll tell you it's a very safe investment, right? You look at even the stock market now, and the stock market returns become less and less each and every cycle. And that's intended to be that way, right? Like there is a little bit of that, a building process that they know that, certain people will not make the same returns. They will not be able to retire with the same, asset classes. And they don't want everyone to get at the bottom, right? They don't want everyone to feel good about buying the bottom together. They're always going to tell you how bullish they are. Even you'll see guys with us on traditional media outlets, Jamie Dimon aside, right? You'll see that as we get higher prices, all of a sudden people come out of the woodworks with price predictions that you never heard from them in the last 18 months, right? Bitcoin to 350K, Bitcoin to 400K. I'm seeing it now, right? Fox Business, I'm seeing it on CNBC, I'm seeing it on a variety of different places, right? But those only come after we start cracking these crazy big highs. So remember, guys, they're always working against you to try to get you to buy into the higher prices. And then as we go into lower prices, then they kind of just back off and they're like, it's kind of scary. We'll see what happens with the landscape. And, it's definitely a big psychological game they play with us.
I like that, Maddie. So, team, if you haven't gathered by what Maddie just said, here's kind of the concluding thoughts, because, I was reading some of the comments from the clips we've been posting, and, some of us is critical about buying Bitcoin at certain prices than others. And that's the difference between me and Jamie Dimon. Jamie Dimon calls Bitcoin worthless in a Ponzi. I don't call Bitcoin worthless in a Ponzi. I am simply critical about where you are buying Bitcoin at, because you had 604 days to buy the bear market of Bitcoin, right? So you should at least establish a good position there. So it is at the prices in which I'm critical of, not the underlying asset itself. I know Maddie has been, critical about some of the fundamentals of Bitcoin. He's not a proof of work maxi, or, transactions like you were talking about last week, Maddie. But I would still rather buy Bitcoin than the S&P. I'd still rather buy Bitcoin than almost any other asset outside of crypto. So I think that's the message here, team. Just so you guys have that, and just so I don't have to, hop on. Maddie, I swear, I unprivated my Twitter because some of these cats are like, dude, okay, this is it. This time to response. But let's get into some of the other things we have for today. And we're going to swing it over with what John Deaton had to say. John Deaton does not know TA, but keeps hearing XRP is bullish. So John Deaton requoted this, quote tweeted this Cointelegraph tweet talking about XRP. And he said, I'm not a technical analyst, but I keep hearing no chart in crypto is more bullish looking than XRP. A 60% would be a $4 XRP, an all-time high. If that happens, I see a vision. Joel Katz on stage rapping LL Cool J's Mama Said Knock You Out. Don't call it a comeback. I've been here for years. So, Maddie, I was telling you, I want to get into the XRP chart today. What is John Deaton talking about? Why is people thinking that the XRP chart is bullish?
Yeah, so first of all, price itself will, especially the average retail trader that doesn't really know anything, will just say price is up, so bullish, right? And I don't disagree, right? Like that obviously does constitute bullishness to some extent. Like we talked about at the top of this episode, though, with the whole Bitcoin chart, that's really my biggest bone to pick with the XRP chart, is that it's imbalanced, and there's just massive imbalance that got left behind. Now, I'm happy to see it. As somebody who's held through all the bullshit and has had to see unnecessary price suppression and, years of people telling you just to dump your XRP, we'll be lucky, Matt, if we get $2, right? Like I'll sell everything if we get $2, but it'd be a blessing to get $2, right? And you guys can see it just took a matter of 20 something days in order to reach almost a $3 price point, right? Pushed really, really hard, very fast. Now, when we look at the grand picture for XRP, yeah, of course, it looks very bullish. You're basically buying the top here, right? This is equivalent of buying Bitcoin at $72,000, which of course can still breed you a great reward, right? Up to maybe like that $13 mark. But again, as you guys can see, that reward, it's a little over a 4x, right? So like the reward that we're talking about, when I was telling you guys, begging you guys, under 50 cents, under 60 cents, just do it. Like, don't worry about price. If it's 25 cents, 30 cents, 22 cents, like under 50 cents is a smoking deal, because it was the easiest part of the trade. You guys just fought me tooth and nail on that part of the trade. Now we're trying to determine if XRP is bullish after it's up multiple X's from that very clear baseline that was offered for fucking years, guys. Sorry. Like it drives me nuts how you guys like to only start paying attention when we get these massive impulses. Now let's get into like some of the more nitty gritties here of like what's happening with the intimate structure on this flagging structure. So obviously big impulse higher here, massive imbalance left behind. Let's put that aside for the short term. Everyone's pointing to this structure. This is a classic flagging structure that you have in here. So you got the trend line, you got kind of like a break of this trend line almost a little bit here, right? And then you got the base of the little like wedge here, right? This is what everyone's looking at. This is just a classic continuation structure after you see, big pieces of or big impulses kick off, big expansion, then you generally get compression. Once you start to see that compression really come to a head and like the day-to-day price action becomes a lot more compressed, that's when people become a lot more bullish. So what they're doing is they're doing a quick measured move here, and they're basically measuring base of the structure to the top of the structure here, right? And they're saying that's like a 56, 60% move, right? And they're saying from the break of this flag structure here, right? Maybe we see like a 60% move or so, like 360. If we go from the top of this of the resistance here, looking at like another like 60% move, right? That puts us kind of around the $4 mark. Obviously, we can always adjust these and say, well, it's more close to here, right? And this is where the structure's at. Either way, the point is we're seeing compression, you're seeing flagging, you're seeing continuation, and that's generally what people are looking for as like a sign to like join in the trend. You're also seeing a nice bounce off the 50-day moving average in here. We of course can grab a fib on this more local swing high, swing low. We can see that the next fib targets produced from this local range, and again, this is just the local range, is 353, 454, 525, and 617, right? So for the next, if you were to buy at current market, which I think 250 is a little expensive, right? We're looking at like a 40% move, 80% move, 120, and then maybe like 150% move up into that target. Now, again, we always rely on the more macro fibs for our, total target making for, our final, like we're letting go of XRP here. But if you wanted to create like a short-term plan for yourself, these are some of the areas of interest you could potentially consider.
The single most important thing for Bitcoin right now, this was in Anthony Pompilano's, I can't say your name, Anthony, I'm sorry. It was in his newsletter. He was discussing what is the most important thing for Bitcoin right now. And here's what he had to say, Maddie. The single most important thing at the moment is whether the Trump administration implements the strategic Bitcoin reserve. Nothing else matters more than that, he said later on. If the strategic reserve happens, all bets are off on what could happen to Bitcoin's price. Now, on the surface, people wonder, oh yeah, the government hoarding, a big amount of Bitcoin and entering, long-term holder status potentially on Bitcoin would be super bullish. I think the question lies what happens after that. What happens with other countries afterwards when the United States take a stance and say, hey, we're actually going to hoard Bitcoin? What do other countries do? I think that's the big question we need to ask here, team, is what happens after the U.S. takes that stance and implements that? Maddie, I have to ask for you, though, a lot of people are wondering here, what's going to happen on Inauguration Day? Are we going to see a big parabolic move in equities? Are we going to see a big parabolic move in cryptos and our altcoins? Or will we see a sell-off that day? And I kind of want you to talk about the importance of maybe a strategic Bitcoin reserve. And do you see eye to eye with Anthony on this?
Well, let's consider what a strategic reserve means, right? Like, that doesn't mean that the government has to go gung-ho and has to start buying $3 billion worth of Bitcoin every month on the first of the month, every single month until forever, right? Like, that doesn't have to be the case. Strategic could be we buy when we feel like it's a good time to buy. We buy when our balance sheets allow us to buy, right? And it also kind of comes down to maybe rebalancing what we already have as part of our strategic reserve, right? What's part of the strategic reserve when it comes to like our sound money, right? Like, quote unquote, sound money, gold and silver, right? Like, that's part of the strategic reserve when it comes to backing our money and creating some sort of hedge for ourselves with our government. Yet, gold and silver still behave in normal cycles, right? Like, regardless of buying of governments, there's still normal market cycles that occur. There's still bear markets that occur. There's always going to be higher lows that are established, right? So I wouldn't say that there's necessarily like this one-to-one pressure. And again, I think that's what everyone's always looking for, is they're looking for that one narrative that's going to make Bitcoin explode. And Matt, I need to know that buying a Bitcoin at $92,000 is going to be great. It's going to be different this time because of the strategic reserve, right? And I would say that last cycle we heard the narrative of ETFs and institutions are here and yada yada and all that different stuff. And that's why, Matt, this bull run is going to be different, and we're going to see Bitcoin run forever, right? But the reality is there's just always going to be that market cycle that occurs. So do I think it's long-term bullish for Bitcoin price to see a strategic reserve built for the government to hoard Bitcoin? Yeah, definitely. Of course. It takes supply out of circulation. There's just an obvious supply and demand factor that happens over time, but that's not something that has immediate pressure always. Now, January 20, right? Like Inauguration Day. What's really changed here, guys, with the markets, if we're really going to think about it, between Trump getting elected and today? Really nothing other than the Federal Reserve changing the amount of cuts that they were potentially looking at from 4 to 2, right, for this year. And then you had obviously some strong job data and a few other economic factors that came out. But if we're just going off of sentiment, right, the same person is still going to be president on the same day that they were always supposed to be president, right? So sentiment should be sky high right now, right? You guys should be buying till your hearts can't buy anymore, until your pockets are empty, right? The market should be ripping right now, but they're not. So am I a person that looks at a news event like Inauguration Day and I go, well, Trump, the second he's in office, he's going to do everything for crypto related? There's a lot of promises he's made to a lot of people, guys, and a lot of promises you probably don't know about. And yes, I'd love to see him be, for the first 100 days in office, focusing explicitly on crypto. I just don't think that's going to be the case, right? Like, there's a lot of money that's been donated, and this is not just Trump. This is of any president when they come in, right? There's a lot of promises, a lot of work that's been promised to a lot of different people. So yeah, I think crypto is going to get some attention in the first 100 days. I don't think it's going to get 100% of Trump's attention in the first 100 days, all right? So I'm not a person who's changing my buying schedule or putting more money into the market than I would usually put in, right? I'm buying strictly, again, based on pricing, based on my DCA, based on my regular schedule. But I'm not a person who's saying I have to have it all in by January 19, because the second this man takes the microphone, the market's ripped, right? If they do end up ripping, great, right? Like, send it to the moon. I'm ready, right? But I'm also not changing anything from a strategy perspective based on that particular narrative. I can show you guys example after example after example after people putting everything on the weight of one narrative. Maybe the markets pump a little bit, but then go right back into doing whatever the cycle was supposed to do, and whatever the charts were going to do anyway. So would love to see it. Optimistic. Would love to see Trump, Trump train, the Trump effect, really kind of bring crypto back to where, we want it to be. But I'm not putting my money where my mouth is, in the sense of like buying ahead of this particular event.
Maddie, a no dollar bet here. What is your predictions for next Monday? Are we going to see parabolic move, or are we going to see a sell-off? Just lighthearted fun.
I say light rally into the event, and then maybe a little bit of a sell-off. That's my gut. But again, I'm literally not betting accordingly. So I'm just staying the course here. At the end of the day, like, if I just had to have every dollar already in, yep, that's kind of where I'm at. So I'm always just going based on market conditions. You can be one of those Fed traders. You can be a news trader. More often than not, these guys lose money, right? Trying to outsmart the markets. You're just not going to, and that's why most people fail at leverage trading, just because it's very volatile. Market makers know how to control everything, and you're going to get caught on the wrong side of it more often than not. So if you're a person who wants to place a small bet, I would rather just go over to poly markets and just have like a binary outcome, right? Like, and go bet on some sort of market. If Trump gets into office, then options are this much. I'd probably rather just put my money there than trying to time the perfect leverage trade in the crypto market. I'm more likely to lose my money that way.
I like that, Maddie. I'm just doing some spot long-term positioning right now with Casper and API3 right now. Those are kind of my primary focuses right now. I was telling you before the show, I have a bunch of stablecoins sidelined right now, and I think just dropping my average significantly on Casper is absolutely the move right now. So I think I'm going to be doing that this week. It's looking pretty great. What Casper's at 1.4 cents right now.
Yeah, so 1.4, 1.5, something like that.
That looks pretty good to me, Maddie. So I'm definitely going to be jumping on that. Team, if you got something valuable today, discussing Jamie Dimon, when to buy Bitcoin, the XRP chart, all these things, leave a like and leave a comment down below. Any of your questions for the Ask Maddie show, 2:30 p.m. Pacific, this upcoming Wednesday, and we'll be sure to bring those up on the show. But team, until Wednesday, we have a couple days here. I'm getting very excited for this moment, Matt. I know we just talked about like the sell-off, and I do agree with you. I do think we will actually see a sell-off, because we are seeing a lot of sell pressure right now. I think we might see a little bit of a rebound, but then I think we'll see more sell-off, because that's what the chart kind of shows me right now. Let's go down and touch that breakout. Let's go touch that CME gap. Let's go do those things so that in 2025 we can have a big year following the Trump inauguration, and we can have big great summer months, and sing Kumbaya and sell the top and buy our Lambos and our Porsches or whatever. So team, it's a very exciting moment. If you want some guidance with that, I highly suggest click the pin link down below. It'll take you to the website Crypto Charge, and you can join us there for our daily shows, because we're going to go do another show right now. So you guys will just have to catch us over there. But team, until Wednesday, bye.